The Cannabis Conversation. A European perspective on the emerging legal cannabis industry.
Welcome to the Cannabis Conversation with Anuj Desai, where we explore the new legal cannabis industry by speaking to the professionals that are helping to shape it. On this week's show, we've got Dave Gibson. Dave is CEO of CannCrest. He's a native Canadian, and he also advises hedge funds and private equity firms on the cannabis industry, plus lots and lots more. So Dave is on the show today to talk about just general insights into the North American market. It's been a busy summer with lots of news, so it'd be good to get his take on what's been happening there. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Anuj, and welcome to you. And welcome to the cannabis industry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, how are you finding it?
Brilliant. I'm loving meeting loads and loads of interesting people. It's the funnest thing I've done, I think.
Is it?
Yeah,
Is it?
for sure.
What are you most excited about?
I always say this. What excites me is that nobody knows quite what they're doing. So it means the rule book's not written yet. And that excites me. There's lots of opportunity.
Yeah. Although on the same token, many people should know what they're doing. This is not new science we're inventing right now. And sometimes we're running retail companies. And retail's been around for years. We should know how to run exceptional retail companies, fast-moving consumer goods or consumer packaged good companies. We have deep experience at these kind of industries. So the business shouldn't be the same. What is new and what I think you're referring to as exciting is all the legislation and people coming to grips with POCA and when it's going to become legal and whether we can prescribe enough to the people that need it in the United Kingdom, etc. Yeah. I think those are the exciting things. But the fundamental business principles are not the same. And that's what people are running around confused about a lot of the time.
Yeah.
At the same time, we have years and years of best practice, global best practice learnings to leverage.
I totally agree. As a reforming lawyer, I tend to stay away from legislation, but I would agree, except that the marketing rules are not quite level playing field.
Or are they? I challenge that again.
Oh, okay, cool.
For years, one of the reasons why our chief commercial officer comes from the baby milk company is because we have the same regulations. Right. We can't, the baby milk industry can't say that this is the best baby milk on the market. This is going to make your baby healthier. This is going to cure certain things. We still can't do that. So there's still a lot of best practices out in that industry we can leverage that mirror what we can and what we can't say in the marketing sphere.
Yeah, very good point. We'll come on to things like that in a bit, actually. Okay. So
it's your show.
Yeah. I like the fact that you started off by interviewing me. That's quite a nice touch. So, Dave, look, North America would be good to talk about in a minute, but for the benefit of the audience, it'd be good for you to probably introduce yourself and say all the various things that you're up to in the space.
Sure. So I come from almost 20 years of operational excellence, having been a management consultant, having done startups, having started business units for big corporations, started an innovation program at a major oil company, spent the last 4 years at Adidas headquarters, growing their omnichannel from 1 to 4, helping to grow their omnichannel from 1 to 4 billion with a fantastic team with just great people. But my big transition into the cannabis space was about 3 or 4 years ago. I've been living in London for 18 years. I'm a British Canadian. And a friend of mine from Calgary, where I grew up, walked through the door and said, "Gibson, oil and gas is dying. We're going green." So I had a whole group of friends who I grew up with and who I have deep trust for and with in Calgary who decided to make a play for the most dispensary licenses in Alberta. And we had a grand vision of Canada, but so I immediately got active in that because almost a light shone down on me when I heard that. It was a brand new consumer-based market that hasn't happened in our generation and surely doesn't happen in every single generation. So I definitely heard my calling. So over time, the guys in Calgary and started up big dispensary, educated the Alberta government, led through education, which we know in the cannabis industry takes up a lot of time and takes up a lot of money and reduces speed of activity of whatever that may be. But education takes a long time. So we educated the Alberta government and we eventually, one by one, started to get those licenses opened up by the Liquor Control Board in Alberta. Fast forward a couple years, 2 or 3 years. And we've just sold that business to Tilray for $110 million.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, look, it's everybody, everybody who was chipping in, trying to make this company great, with the drivers sitting in Calgary, doing the best that they could. And keeping in mind, we're oil and gas and property guys. We're not, guys in Calgary are not born retailers like we see at Apple and we see at Adidas, etc. So to go this far in such a short period of time has just been a phenomenal thing. And I think it's pretty rare in London to have a Londoner having exited a cannabis company this early on in the industry. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, definitely quite a unique footing to have that there. Yeah. And it's quite good that you were in London, but yeah, your old Canadian pals sort of hooked you up into the next big thing. Of
course. Yeah. We always want to work together. You have 18 years of trust between you.
Yeah.
It's easy to work with.
Sometimes it always doesn't work out, but if it does, it's brilliant, I think. Yeah. So
that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, it sounds like lots to be keeping you busy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if we can get your insight on things going on in North America. As I said at the top of the show, it's been quite an eventful summer for some of the big cannabis companies. There's a few different ways we can tackle it. I guess, what are you seeing around sort of the valuations of businesses, particularly on the Canadian exchanges, where it seems to be a bit of a correction going on?
Yeah, look, the valuations are what the market pays for them, right? So, if there's an opportunity for business owners and to put up valuations and the market takes it, then power to them, right? You're right. I did see a large correction. I've seen my stock portfolio tumble over the last little summer, but I'm a long-term investor, so I'm not worried about anything. I just keep my money where it is. And yeah, there's a correction going on. Look, we've seen things like Bruce stop working at Canopy.
Yeah. So for the listeners' benefit, this Bruce Linton, who was the CEO of Canopy Growth, which is the largest cannabis company in the world, was relieved of his duties over the summer by the shareholders.
Yeah, it's fair. And we can touch on that. The CannCrest scandal in Alberta that shook the market. And overall, I think the market is starting to not be as bullish with their investments and starting to take a more thorough look at what they are investing in and lifting up the hood a lot deeper and finding out whether there's operational and compliance under the hood.
Yeah. And so do you think it was, a lot of the valuations are built around a kind of, hype bubble type thing? You've got to get in. It will continue to make money forever and ever, sort of thing. It will start to make money at some point.
There's very few companies in London that are actually getting funded right now, although there's a lot of noise from the city. But are people actually deploying? I wouldn't say so. The people that are getting funds deployed to their investment are great fundraisers. Maybe they're not the best operational people in the world, but they fundraise and they're good at it, and they can bring in a lot of money and they can promote an investment and they close the book. That's what we're seeing right now in London. But yeah, promotion is part of the game.
Yeah. And, you mentioned CannCrest. And again, for the benefit of the audience, CannCrest is a Canadian licensed producer that has been rumbled for some sharp practices in terms of illegal grow facilities. And it's been a bit of a scandal for the industry. How's that kind of affecting things? Is it shaken confidence?
Yeah, it has shaken confidence. Look, I wanted to give CannCrest the benefit of the doubt. One thing that I'm seeing in this industry is that there's some bad eggs and there's some envy out there, and it's really easy to spread wrong and incorrect rumors in this industry. So I really gave CannCrest the benefit of the doubt. I was hoping it was just a jaded competitor that said this to them, but as time moves on, it looks like there's actually legitimacy to the claim. So yes, it has shaken it. Look, this is a part of the transition from the black market to the gray market to the white market. And there are still characters and individuals in our cannabis industry that derive from the gray and the black market. There is going to be that. We are going to go through this process of getting into the white, and we're doing a lot of work to get the industry to the white. You've read the Center for Medicinal Cannabis report, suggesting that, we're double checking our products, or we're uber compliant, more compliant than the government needs us to be. And, being firmly planted in a very compliant white market, I don't think you can do enough tests. I don't think you can do enough compliance. I think that we have to lead by example.
So we have to be kind of whiter than white to begin with.
Whiter than white.
Because we're fighting the stigma of a legacy.
Right. If the government says don't do one test on your CBD, do 2 tests.
Yeah. It definitely needs restoring confidence, and stories like this don't really help things, I suppose.
No. And it's indicative, there's other stories, a lot of companies are not hitting their forecasts, so I implore the industry to give more conservative forecasts, to not overhype your potential of your company. Mm-hmm. Under promise and over deliver would be a fantastic mandate for every company.
Yeah. I actually was reading something that was saying that with the kind of rush of money to a lot of these licensed producers, they were overpaying for their acquisitions on numerous fronts. And that has led to a huge amount of goodwill being on the books of a lot of these big companies, which is obviously a kind of intangible asset. Have you seen that sort of play out? Like people are paying way too much for a grow facility, etc.?
Yeah, there is that. I see that. There was just recently a big greenhouse acquired in England, which is public information, for a price that I was very surprised with. People are trying to get their stakes. People are trying to produce cannabis as quickly as possible. So overvaluations for LPs, yes, it's happening. Still, I think there's a tremendous slowdown of people racing for those LPs, looking at different business strategies of how to make money, whether they want to be upstream or downstream, close to the customer, on the farm, where do they want to be? But yeah, that's certainly still happening.
Yeah. So are you seeing any kind of trends that have changing over the course of a year? I mean, in the UK, the market is so young. It's very CBD focused. Mm-hmm. Medicinal hasn't really got off the ground because just of the logistical hurdles, although, as you pointed out before, there's a big education kind of drive at the moment. Are you seeing any trends in a more mature market like the North America?
Okay, so crystal balling. Yeah, okay. What's going to happen in the UK is basically because the US trends are going to...
I was going to ask you actually, what are you seeing in the US, and do you think it will transfer?
Yeah, so here's some trends. I can split it into a whole bunch of different topic areas, but one of them is online searches. CBD is now surpassed items like kombucha and just below yoga for health and wellness trends among millennials and other premium demographics. So that's one trend. Another one is the ingestibles and how people are consuming them. Mm. That's another trend. People are obviously moving away from the smoke part of it, going to the vapes. And then from the vapes, we're going to see edible trend. CannCrest, the company that I own in the UK, are making a big play for the drinks market, still keeping our CBD supplements line as well, because that's important. It gives you credibility and knowledge in the industry and offers customers a wide range of different products to let customers choose, because customer centricity is key. From an operational, I'll go investor. I'll go operational. I just talked a bit about consumer trends. By the way, consumer trends are going up in the United States. I just got back from Los Angeles last week. I'm seeing a lot more CBD in there. As you know, CBD just became federally legal around the United States recently with a farm bill. And so investor trends in the United States, a lot of consolidation happening. Mm. Another trend that I'm seeing in the United States, I think, is an increased level of operational maturity. A couple of years ago, everybody was just trying to figure out how to sell their products, in which B2B or B2C, or how to get it, and supply chain and seed to sale or seed to smoke, what have you, just trying to figure that out. And by people trying to figure out their back end operations, that then decrease the amount of focus they had on their customers, thus reducing customer centricity. In this industry, it is all about customer centricity. Mm-hmm. So what I'm seeing recently is a heck of a lot more focus on that customer centricity. So I walked into a dispensary in Los Angeles last week, and I mean, the service was world class.
Yeah. Sorry, customer centricity, I assume, is just a real focus on delivering for the customer.
Yeah, exactly. How I want the product, the information I want with the product, when I want it, at the price point I want it. I mean, it's the organization really having a deep understanding of what their specific customer in the specific segment wants from the customer experience.
Yeah.
It's crucial. So I'm seeing more attention paid to that in the United States right now.
That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you think those sort of trends will follow into Europe? Do you see, I mean, UK, let's not get into the politics of it, but do you see things developing differently here than they have done in North America, or do you think it will largely mimic what's going on there?
Yeah, I think many things will develop the same way that they have in North America. I think we're at different stages and phases than North America here. You know, people are making a play for CBD right now. People saw it happening in the United States a couple of years ago, and then the farm bill came, then it was all guns blazing for CBD. I think in the UK, we're still quite a ways away from the legalization of THC. Some people say 5 to 10 years. I think with recent developments in at least the Boers camp for now, that could expedite down to 3 to 5 years, just because it's on his agenda.
Depends how long he sticks around for.
It depends for how long he sticks around. Yeah, maybe October, maybe November. Who knows? Let's make a good run for it while he's in there. Make some changes. Sprint. Everybody sprint. But the fundamental parallel to North America market and the UK market is there's a plant. This plant does great things. It enables process into your endocannabinoid system that otherwise wouldn't be enabled without it. The items it helps are range from sleep to sports recovery and muscle recovery to anti-anxiety. So the benefits are there and the customers are turned on to it. And the customers are learning, especially the first mover customers who are always at the tip of trends. So that is exceptionally parallel, that this plant is here to stay and just really growing in popularity and usage.
Yeah. And I liken it to a bit of Pandora's box. So things are happening all over the world at different paces. And one country was to sort of go backwards in terms of prohibition. They would just miss out because there are other pockets of the world. There's Israel, Australia, wherever are doing stuff that you wouldn't be able to change the world trend basically as a country, even someone as big as the US, I don't think.
And these that North America is going to help these other countries once we get good business cases out of places like Canada. Yeah. I mean, if you look at how much revenue this has brought into Canada, it's not just taxing the actual leaf. It's how many jobs have we seen be created through the cannabis industry. And it comes at a great time, especially in my province where I grew up, Alberta. The oil and gas industry is taking a hit. So this is helping offset that. But, the jobs, I mean, it's adding new revenue into delivery services and post offices, and the financial benefits are just absolutely fantastic. So I'm really waiting for numbers to be released by Canada, especially just because that's the only real formalized federal program in the world, but so that the UK can kind of open their eyes and say, this could be good.
Well, I mean, again, another one of my sort of theories on it was that I think a lot of governments will be looking to see what mistakes Canada and California make in how they regulate. Yeah. And once they're sufficiently convinced that there's a kind of working model, I think maybe then they'll start to look at it more favorably. And because they just want someone else to do the work for them, maybe.
Yeah. Well, we've done so many mistakes and we've done a great job in Canada. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was fortune favors the bold. I mean, to go legal in Canada has been huge. But, some of the big mistakes that we've learned from Canada is it was too tightly regulated. Yeah. So
similar thing in California, I think.
Similar in California, which is fine. You keep the noose tight and then you just release and start very strict. And then, like your first child as a parent, they're always getting, the most strict discipline. And then by child 4, they can run amok. I don't think we're going to be able to run amok in this industry.
No. However, we need to be more grown up and responsible.
However, those big learnings were directly seen on our balance sheet for 420 in Alberta. For a long time, the government couldn't keep up to approving the batches of cannabis earmarked for our stores. So we only had cannabis 2 out of 7 days a week at points.
Right.
And that killed us. It really wrecked our financial model, I'll tell you. Yeah. The other thing was we were under the impression that we were going to get our licenses, the number of licenses a lot quicker than we did. Again, that's just kind of government not being able to keep up.
So they didn't have the infrastructure to service this level of applications.
Correct. So that really slowed down our expansion plans, which then caused burn for us because we were paying lease on the stores.
Yeah.
We had hired the staff. We're ready to launch, pull the trigger, right? So there's really big learnings from North America that we can employ over here. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. It will be really interesting to see how things play out over the next couple of years from a number of angles.
It's back to your excitement about the industry.
Yeah, no, completely.
What's up next?
Yeah, who knows? And difficult to predict.
But you can predict more effectively if you have direct channels into the powers that know.
Yeah.
Because there are people, unlike what we're doing with Brexit over here, where nobody knows, there are people that do have good blueprints and do have a good, thorough understanding for how it should at least look in the United Kingdom.
Yeah. And
you can plan accordingly.
Yeah, that would be very welcome for most people with that planning and foresight. I guess one of the things is that allied to the very first point that we were talking about marketing, not being able to advertise on social media is quite a handicap, I would say. So we'll talk about CannCrest now and the beverages that you're looking to launch. How are you finding that operational constraint of not being able to market on those major platforms?
It's interesting. When I build strategies for other companies, you have to take a really good deep look at what other companies are doing, and that will impact your strategy in one way or another. With the cannabis industry, it's all wide open. I felt very free to create a world-class strategy for CannCrest because there's nobody else really doing it doing it well, at least in the United Kingdom where my market is. My blocker was absolutely cannabis industry not being federal in the United States, Google and Facebook operating under the jurisdiction of the United States, and 70% of the internet advertising is with Google and Facebook. So you're right. It's very expensive to reach eyeballs with working with 30% because it's dispersed. Where do you go? There's no central aggregator. We did the analysis for how much it would cost in order to acquire a customer online. And it's expensive because you can't drive people from an ad directly to your website so that they purchase a product. You have to actually go to a landing page, educational landing page. And for more information, then go to our website. So you're adding one more layer.
Step.
There's an extra step. And so you see a massive drop off of customers. And so then you have to calculate how much that actual customer who actually goes onto your site, let alone purchases, cost. And it is exceptionally expensive.
Really? Okay.
So you have to find other ways to acquire customers, to find customers, to engage customers. But that's okay because there's many routes to market. There's many ways you can find those customers, and you just have to be intelligent to get around it. Now, the other side of that is, I don't know if this administration in the United States is going to federally legalize cannabis or not. It may be the next one. I'm not sure what's happening in the United States. But when it does become federally legal and Google and Facebook open their doors to online advertising, it's going to be a whole new ballgame. It's going to be a very different perspective, and also marketplaces. Again, Amazon and eBay, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, when they start to open up their marketplaces, they're going to dominate. So, it's going to be a different landscape when US federalizes.
Yeah, for sure. So should we talk about CannCrest a little bit quickly?
Sure, yeah.
With the drinks side of things, how have you overcome the water solubility issue? And again, just for the listeners' benefit, cannabinoids aren't naturally water soluble. They're soluble in fat, which doesn't lend itself to making drinks very easily. But there's some very smart people who have been working on technology to make it water soluble. How have you at CannCrest approach that?
The quick answer is we work with those really smart people. We make it water soluble. Yeah. Odorless, flavorless. Yeah.
And how did you, there are a few people offering solutions in this area. Did you just, do you need a science background to understand what each person is doing?
Yeah. So here's a fundamental principle. You're right that CBD does not absorb into the body as well as other things. You're right that with ingestibles, you're really only getting 10 to 20% effectiveness from your CBD. If you put application like, a nicotine patch with CBD on it, you could get up, if it's the right patch, between 70 and 80%.
Right.
So there are better ways to take your CBD for more effectiveness. We believe that we put enough CBD in our drinks and we've tested it enough that people actually get that desired impact from it. The trick with it is making it taste good. Even if it's odorless and flavorless, there's still a tinge of the CBD in it. So it's to mix those flavors effectively so that they all go well together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, there's some good science coming out, and it's just getting better and better.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So there's a bioavailability and the mixologist part of it.
Yeah, it really is. It boils down to the mixologist and the bioavailability. Yeah. You're dead right.
Cool. Well, thank you. That's been really good. I'm going to end with my customary last question, which is always, what did your family say when you told them you were getting into the weed business?
That's a fantastic question. Is this really your kind of trademark question? Yeah. That's a great question. My family. We'll start with my sisters. They were the quickest to come around and say, holy cow. Because, we still have a lot of North American, my one sister in London, one in New York, one in Los Angeles. They all knew what was happening in the industries. And, they just knew that this was great for me, this industry, because of the operational excellence piece and the fact that I really do believe in this plant. It's just fantastic. So the sisters were fun. The parents were dubious. Although luckily the people were starting to make money in Canada. And, my dad is a frequent subscriber to Bloomberg, and he said to me, it's all cannabis companies on my ticker these days. What's going on over there? What's going on in North America? So they came around pretty quickly, just because the more you learn, the more you realize how great an opportunity this is and how great this plant is for people. Yeah.
And did they have to overcome kind of stigma at all? Older generation has obviously grown up with a
stigma, yeah.
Drugs are bad.
Of course.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, they did. They went through that, but now they're fully on board and they buy into it. I mean, you've just seen a lump of newspaper articles that my mom cuts out for me every week on the cannabis industry in Vancouver, So, yeah, they're coming around. My last part of my family, I think, is my stepbrother.
Okay.
I have two stepbrothers, but my stepbrother, he saw it right away. He's an entrepreneur, right? So when I said I was doing this in this 420 venture in Alberta and I'm going to replicate and make a company in UK, he was fully behind this. So now the whole Gibson family is fully behind this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. I suppose if you're from Canada and it's being made legal kind of federal level, it's harder to sort of think badly of it, I suppose, or maybe it's easier to change your mind about it, let's say.
Sure.
So that's good. Cool. Okay. Sure. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Dave. That's been a really fun show.
Has it?
Yeah. You put me on the spot at the beginning, which I quite liked.
Oh, I let you off easy. I was going to ask you more questions.
You did. That'll be the next show. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you. And hopefully we can have you on the show again.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me for that. That was a great show. I hope you enjoyed it. After the show, I actually got to try some of Dave's new drinks, which were delicious. So I'll be happy to give that a push when they come out. It's been a great week in the cannabis space. Got to go to the launch party of Margent Farm. Some of you may remember Steve Barron, who was one of my first guests, who is co-founder of Margent Farm, which is a hemp farm in Cambridgeshire. Fantastic work that they're doing. They're developing lots of sustainable products made from hemp, and that was a really nice little event. This Thursday, I will be hosting an event called Greenlight, which is in Shoreditch in London. Two of the guys behind Greenlight, Henri St. Cassier and Richard Scaife, both who've been former guests of mine. The three of us are actually going to be launching a consultancy business called New Leaf Insights. The aim is to help launch businesses into the cannabis space. I've really enjoyed doing the podcast, and I've managed to pick up a few things through interviewing and pick up some good contacts too. So hopefully this is useful to people wanting to get into the space. More news on that in the next few weeks, but I'm really excited about this next move. As ever, if you're enjoying the show, I'd be really grateful if you could please leave a review, particularly on iTunes. If you can spare the time, it would be really, really helpful. But for now, I'll leave you until next week. Take care.